A dark, gloomy room with thick, still air creating a sense of suffocation. On the bed, a boy was lying who was changing his posture by each passing second, getting restless. Actually, he was trying to sleep but couldn't as sleep was far away from him. He felt a sharp pain inside his brain which made him sit on the bed in a jerk. He held his head as a few tears slipped down his cheeks from his puffy, swollen eyes due to lack of sleep. It's getting worse now, he said in a deep, sleepy voice. I should consult a doctor now, he added, nodding his head as he struggled hard and went to take a shower first. At the hospital, we have to perform an MRI, the doctor exclaimed. Is this something serious? Jimin asked. Maybe I'm wrong, but it can be, the doctor said. Jimin sighed coldly. After a few days, the MRI got done. Now Jimin went to take his reports. What's wrong, doctor? Jimin asked with a heavy heart. I think you should be hospitalized by now, the doctor said. Jimin's worried expression turned tense now as he knew that something really bad was going to happen. Mr. Min Jimin, you are diagnosed with a brain tumor, the doctor said. Jimin gasped slowly, feeling like someone had snatched the floor beneath his feet. He parted his lips to speak but couldn't, as it was enough trauma for him. It wasn't like he was worried about himself, the real thing eating him. From inside was his husband. Thank you, doctor. I'll consult you later now, Jimin said, getting up from there.
But try to be fast. You don't have much time like this, the doctor said. Jimin hummed and left from there. Next day, Jimin was lying on his bed, trying to sleep like before but couldn't as he was terrified now. His POV.
From yesterday, my whole life changed. I can't feel myself right now. How am I going to tell him this? He loves me a lot. Even I love him a lot. My cheeks got wet in a few seconds as I couldn't help myself and burst into tears. His POV ends.
Time skips. Jimin came outside and found out that Yoongi was sitting there in the lounge watching a football match. Nobody could explain how much he was fond of these matches, while Jimin had never gone near them. Their room door opened, and Jimin took slow, numb steps toward the lounge. He approached Yoongi and sat beside him slowly. Yoongi didn't react much. He just silently wrapped his arm around Jimin's waist and pulled him over himself. Jimin smiled sadly, then raised his face and looked at Yoongi, who was engrossed in the match. I wish life could stop here, Jimin thought. He smiled brightly looking at Yoongi, knowing that after some days, nothing would remain like this. Yoongi noticed Jimin's gaze on him. He bowed his head down but didn't move his eyes away from the TV screen. He pecked Jimin's forehead and got busy with his match again. Jimin blushed as he buried his face in Yoongi's chest and fell asleep in that position. After some time, the match ended. Yoongi switched off the television and looked at his husband, who was sleeping peacefully on his chest. After some time, the match ended. Yoongi switched off the television and looked at his husband, who was sleeping peacefully on his chest. A big smile formed on his face as he got up, held Jimin in his arms carefully, and made his way toward their room. Inside the room, he placed Jimin on the bed and then covered him with a duvet. He sat beside him and began to adore his husband's mesmerizing charms. "Why are you getting so pale nowadays?" Yoongi asked as he caressed Jimin's cheeks. "I will be more careful about you from now on. Promise," Yoongi said as he lay beside him. Next day, "Why are you bringing him into this now?" Yoongi yelled. "When did I?" "Yoongi, you're just creating drama now," Jimin exclaimed. "Oh, really? I'm creating drama now," Yoongi said. "Wow, Jimin." Yoongi clapped his hands. "You're still defending him," Yoongi added. "I'm not defending him. He is just my friend," Jimin said. "After everything he did to me," Yoongi yelled. Jimin hummed, bowing his head. "Unbelievable. You're asking me to take you to him because you just want to forgive him now," Yoongi added. "Yeah, that's true," Jimin said in a sad tone. "You still have feelings for him, don't you?" Yoongi yelled. "It's nothing like that," Jimin yelled, getting frustrated now. "Is, you never wanted to give our arranged marriage a chance," Yoongi yelled. "You're misunderstanding me now," Jimin yelled, trying to convince him, but it was useless. "Now, I'm getting the whole idea," Yoongi yelled. "Yoongi, I love you," Jimin said with tearful eyes.
Shut up! I shouldn't have saved you that night. You should die, Yoongi yelled as he banged the door and left, leaving Jimin looking at the door with hurt flashing through his eyes.
His POV. "I shouldn't have asked him. I know I was wrong. Bogum did so much bad to me and even tried to kill him, but still He wasn't wrong though, but I want to meet Bogum before dying." His POV ends. The distance between them increased more these days. They used to stay near each other, help each other, but never shared any words. After 2 days, on Yoongi's side, he was in his cabin when his phone rang. He picked up the call. "Is this Mr. Min?" a person said. Yes," Yoongi replied. "I'm calling from XYZ hospital. Your husband forgot his reports here. Spare some time and fetch them," the person said. "Okay, I will come in sometime," Yoongi said.
Time skips. Yoongi came to the hospital, and the receptionist asked him to go to the doctor to get the file. In the doctor's cabin,
Yoongi was sitting there with his mouth hanging open in shock and his eyes gawking at the doctor as if he would tear up soon. "It's not true," Yoongi said, shaking his head in denial.
the doctor remained silent. "He didn't tell me about this," Yoongi added as he felt his heart getting stabbed. "Maybe he wasn't in a condition too," the doctor said.
Yoongi froze. "Mr. Min, you should admit him here now. Otherwise, it will get late," the doctor said. Yoongi hummed as he got up from there and left. In the Min mansion, Yoongi rushed inside. After searching the whole mansion, he found that Jimin was lying on the kitchen floor. "Jimin!" Yoongi screamed as he dashed toward him and took him in his arms. Panicking, he made Jimin sit in the co-driver's seat and himself sat on the driver's seat. He was driving as fast as he could. His breaths were getting heavy as anxiety took over him. "Jimin, please wake up," Yoongi said in a tense, cracked voice as he put his hand over Jimin's cheek. Tears stained his cheeks, but he didn't care. At the hospital, the doctor took Jimin inside while Yoongi was sitting outside, lost somewhere, with numb expressions on his face. "You asked him to die, didn't you? Now see where he is," his subconscious screamed. "Please, no, I never meant that," Yoongi said in a miserable voice. Flashbacks of his time with Jimin hit his mind, those good old days which made him lose control as he broke into tears. But somehow, he controlled himself within a few minutes. After some time, the doctor came outside. Yoongi got up and dashed toward him. "Doctor," Yoongi said in a rush. His tense, broken voice clearly showed how worried he was. The doctor grabbed Yoongi's shoulder. "Please, don't say it," Yoongi said. The doctor nodded his head in denial. Yoongi froze momentarily, unable to move or react, and stepped back. Yoongi found it hard to breathe properly. He didn't wait a second longer and rushed inside the OT. Yoongi approached Jimin and stopped near him as he saw the innocent soul lying lifelessly on the deathbed. Tears made their way down his face. "Jimin," Yoongi whispered slowly, his trembling voice breaking under the weight of grief. He lifted his trembling hands toward Jimin's face and gently cupped it. He leaned his head closer until it rested against Jimin's, breathing heavily as tears fell freely from his eyes. "Jimin, please, no," he murmured in a cracked voice. His painful tears fell onto Jimin's neck. Yoongi kept sobbing there until breathing itself felt like a struggle.
Finally, he lifted his face and placed a soft kiss on Jimin's forehead. He smiled sadly and left the room, his heart hollow and filled with regret.
A few days later, Yoongi was sitting on their bed, holding a small piece of paper in his trembling hands. It was a letter from Jimin. "Oh, finally, you found it out. Hope so. It's too late now. Don't be sad. Just smile. I'm always with you here as my soul. Whenever you miss me, just look at the sky, you'll find me in the stars there. I'm missing you every single second, Jimin," Yoongi said, his voice heavy with tears. "Just don't be too harsh on yourself. You know how much I love you. Take care, my love. I love you."
Yoongi burst into tears, holding the letter tightly against his chest. The regret of his words, his anger, and the distance he'd created consumed him. He cried until he began to gasp for air, overwhelmed by the guilt that he had been the one to tell Jimin to die.
Years later, the years had turned Yoongi into a cold and strict person in the eyes of the world, but deep inside, only he knew how much he cried every single night, longing for his Jimin. He stood in front of Jimin's grave, his expression blank but his eyes reflecting endless sorrow. "Isn't it too cold here?" Yoongi muttered softly, gazing at the gravestone. "Come back to me," he whispered. "I shouldn't have argued with you that day. I regret it now." His voice cracked as he kneeled on the cold ground. "I know this is my punishment, to miss you for more years than I've known you." A sad, broken smile formed on Yoongi's lips as he placed his hand on the gravestone, brushing it gently. The coldness of the stone mirrored the emptiness in his heart. The end.